What separates high achievers from the rest? How can someone go from being broke to wealthy beyond their dreams? From being fat to a world-class athlete? From being underconfident to being in absolutely tremendous mental shape? Jay Pathak is a corporate professional turned author, speaker, and coach. Throughout his professional and entrepreneurial career of over 14 years, he's impacted 50,000 plus lives across 7 countries. Join him as we take a closer look at the stories and methods of ordinary people who've achieved extraordinary results regardless of the difficult circumstances we all face in life. Welcome to the Alpha X Podcast.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is Jay Pathak, and welcome to the Alpha X Podcast. Now, today I'm going to introduce you to somebody who used to be a mentor for me at one point in time, and now has become someone I confide in, someone who I can call a close friend. And what you'll find that's amazing about her is, she used to believe that making money was difficult. She used to believe that, success came as a struggle. She used to believe that she needed to please people, that at one point in time, she was a validation chaser, just like I was, and that's not really who she really was, because if you look at her now, she's this powerful, completely transformed human being who's on top of her financial game, who's on top of her career game, her business game. I mean, she's on top of the world right now. She's on top of her relationship. She's done it all and still moving forward. So how does that happen? And if you're wondering how does that happen, then I think you'll really enjoy today's episode. So let's dive right into it. What I like to talk about is how can somebody go from being ordinary to extraordinary? How can somebody go from struggling and not getting results to, changing and getting extraordinary results in their life, in whichever area of their life, So, in fact, one of the biggest things I think, Smita, that really changed the way that I looked at you was, when you shared your journey with me about how bad things used to be at one point in time for you. Because looking at you right now, the kind of person that you are right now, the kind of things that you're doing right now, it's so hard to imagine, and I think you'll be the best person to, kind of even say what it was like. And why don't you do that? Why don't you just talk a little bit about what it was like and, what it is like right now for you?
Yeah, in fact, I think this is my biggest problem, probably, that people, when they see me today, they think it all came very easy to me. It was very easy to just go out there and talk. She looks so confident. She looks so powerful. She looks like she can just go and do it. But they don't know that part of me which existed, which was scared of being judged, who could not even speak in front of her in-laws, forget about the world. I would have people just walk over me and I've heard things that if a woman hears, she will go commit suicide. She would. It was so humiliating to my soul to hear those things. And I did not have the courage to stand up and speak. I would just hear it out. And these are things which has happened in front of me, in front of my parents, my family, and nobody would take a stand for me, because I come from a family like that where, it said that women need to adjust, they need to compromise, they shouldn't speak out. So I was and as a child, obviously this is me, in my real sense. So I was like that when I was a child. So, right from my childhood, the biggest grooming lessons that I've got from my mom is to tame down, speak less, don't be loud, don't say things out, and don't speak too much, don't back answer, behave like a girl. So stuff like that. So when I grew up, as in the minute the teenage kicked in and the minute I started going to college, the outside world, meeting people, these I could call it a code because that's my inner voice. These are my inner voices. My mom lived in my head, right? With all due respect, I love her and we share a great relationship now, but that wasn't the case earlier. So she lived in my head and my conversation, she kept saying things to me in my head. So I couldn't speak out. Even if I wanted to speak out, I was scared. I was, recently a friend's fiance went through something and she had met me and she told my friend that if Smita was there, she would have said it like this. I couldn't say it. And I told my friend the same thing. She's not seen that Smita who couldn't say it. Right? She thinks it was easy for me and it is not. So I have been that person for whom talking was difficult, back answering, forget about back answering, even speaking my heart out was difficult. What I wanted to say, what I really wanted, saying that was difficult. Speaking about my dreams was difficult. Asking for money was difficult. And we were struggling majorly with finances, when I got into my second marriage as well. In spite of that, I wouldn't tell this to my family also of what I'm going through. So, telling them of how things are or what really life is about was difficult. So it was not easy for me. But I think for me, what was there was a vision of what I want. And it was not materialistic vision in terms of I want this house or I want this money or I didn't have. I've kind of been said that I'm bad about it and I don't have those visions, which I don't think of I want a penthouse because that's not what gives me a lot of joy. But I do think of the number of lives I want to impact. I do think of what I want to do. Like, I know how my funeral is going to look like. Like, I exactly can tell you how my funeral is going to look like. And I can tell you that in every single minutest detail.
That's kind of dark, isn't it?
So, but that's how I want to live. I was in my 12th grade when my grandmother passed away and my dad is a social worker. And I so clearly still remember this. Like, my dad is a social worker. So the entire area was filled with people who had come for my grandmother's funeral because of my dad. Yeah, I
had a very similar. In fact, when my mom's dad, passed away. So my nana or my granddad passed away. So he comes from a small town in Moradabad. So we flew down there. We literally had to wait through a crowd for 15 minutes before we could get to the house. And there was so many people, and that is something I'm like, I knew him as my, my nana, my granddad, but wow, all these people are there for him. I can imagine.
Yeah. And that time I was in my 12th grade standing on my neighbor's house, balcony and seeing that crowd there. And I still remember saying this to myself, I want this like this. Yeah. And then, if you remember, Sridevi passed away. And there was a photograph of a funeral where the entire Andheri Lokhandwala was like filled, like the whole Andheri was packed. Yeah. I've taken a photo of that and kept it with me. That's there with me. I was like, this is how my funeral will look like. Oh, so I have those dreams for myself, of who I will become as a person. And not in terms of, okay, I will be a very good human being. I didn't have that, but I had that what I will be for others. And that naturally made me what I'm meant to become.
In fact, I think let's in fact talk a little bit about, what things were like for you before, with respect to when you mentioned that, okay, you had difficulty speaking up and, expressing yourself and, being a certain way because that's how you were told. How did that affect your finances, your career, your business, your relationships, and how have things shifted for you now?
So I got into my first marriage just because my parents thought that was the right thing for me to do. I was ambitious even at that time, but they said, okay, you're a girl, you can pursue your career even after that. I said, okay, that's what probably girls are supposed to do. And I got into it. And obviously it did not work out for me because it was not even the person I thought I can resonate with. And I had this dream, or even at that time, I had not got into this industry, but even at that time, I had a dream of doing something for people, impacting lives, doing something. It was that this has been something that's been churning in me for a longest I know of. So, I would keep talking about it, but it was more about, why do you want to help people? Why do you want to do it for people? Why do you want to, I've been that person always naturally to go help my neighbor, to go help someone in the, building. Even if I don't know them, if I see them in trouble, I would go and help. And I've been shouted for it of why do you want to do that? Why are you doing that? Or why do you want to do it for people? And I'd be like, okay, probably, what you're supposed to do is just go to a 9 to 5 job, get your salary back home, give it to your husband, and live from bill to bill, and just hope that every month goes away okay, right? Where you can just be okay. And if you have to go to a restaurant, think about which restaurant should you enter. Can you even afford to go to this place? If this looks too big, then don't enter there because it's going to be too expensive. So don't go there. If you're order from the right-hand side of the menu than the left-hand side of the menu. So I've been all of that. In fact, changing 3 different local trains to get to my job, and then coming back home, feeding a weaning child, breastfeeding her at that time. So I've been all that. In fact, none of these things I wanted to do. None of it I wanted to do. In fact, I had a complete reverse concept of how motherhood should be, but I did it completely in a reverse way. Thankful to all that because I became what I should become in the process. However, yeah, it was messed up. Then went through a divorce, and divorce also happened because I started working on myself, and I started getting the courage to aspire for what I think is right. And I started getting the courage to stand up and at least tell my own self that it's okay to decide for your own self.
How do you build that courage? Like, if somebody is going through what you just talked about right now, something similar, and they're feeling stuck. They want to do something, but they're just like I don't know. I don't want to use the word scared. Maybe they're just stuck in some way,
Yeah.
What do they do? How do they change?
So it did not happen naturally. I obviously worked on myself. I took help. I did a lot of therapies. So how does it happen is, obviously, first thing I would say is, don't try to do it on your own because you're in the maze yourself, right? You can't see the bigger picture. So let someone else facilitate it for you. So allow that process to happen. I think that's the biggest courageous thing you could do. If I can take a class for people on how to ask for help, I think I'll do it and charge $1 million for it because this is something that people need to learn. Every living species on this planet Earth knows how to ask for help. Nature has designed us this way. However, it's only human beings who evolved and who said, oh my God, asking for help is weakness, but rather asking for help is strength, right? So that, in fact, I was just telling a friend today morning the same thing, that the strongest, wildest animal, like an elephant, if they fall into a pit, they tame themselves down, receive help from human beings. Even a lion and a tiger, they receive help. They don't come and attack you at that time. They receive help and they allow people to help them to come out of that pit, right? That's nature's way of designing. So number 1 is ask for help. Number 2 is, we as we grow up are a composition of, in fact, I've written this in my book as well, but there's a chapter on being your parents.
I want to talk about your book actually later. We're going to talk about that for sure. I think people are going to be, they want to hear about that.
Right. So there is a chapter on not being your parents, right? So where I've spoken about, we are a composition of different parts of what was told to you in your childhood by your parents, by your sister, sibling, friends, whatever, right? And these conversations run in your head. And they are not your original conversation. When you were born strong, right? You were born that courageous child who can go out there in front of the public, stand there naked, not feeling anything about it. That is who you were.
You have no preconceived,
absolutely
conversations going on about what these things mean.
Yes.
But that's the meaning later.
Yeah. You attach the meaning later, right? So those meanings come to you by all these conversations you've heard around you, and they start running in your head. And they're playing as a tape recorder there at the backward. Yeah. And that is what stops you from taking the action that you need to take. It's not that you're scared. It's just that I think you're too good. You're too nice in terms of you're worried about hurting your loved ones. You're worried about what will others say. You're worried about how you will be seen, right? So these are things that is of concern. And if you take help and work on those elements of yours, like I was so scared of receiving judgment from people. That was my biggest fear. And I was a big time people pleaser because, I had to keep everybody around me happy. I
Smita
was.
Nair being a people pleaser. All right, that's hard for me to believe right now.
Yeah, so I was a big time people pleaser. And in fact, I remember in my first marriage, there have been times where my, ex-in-laws or someone would say, and I would go to the neighbor's house and cry because I can't even cry in my own house. Like, I had to all the time be good, and I had to all the time be nice, and I had to all the time be smiling at them, and I had to all the time cater to them. And it was crazy.
Wow.
So I was a people pleaser. I had to please everyone. I wanted to be seen as a good daughter, the good wife, the good mother-in-law, the good sister-in-law. And oh my God, the way I've gone out of my way to be that is insane. Like when my friends would hear me, they would be like, what's wrong with you? Why do you do so much? And I'm like, no, I have to do it. I have to do it. And I kept doing it. And to one day where I realized that, if you're constantly doing it to please someone else, it's okay to be kind to someone. And I think you should be kind to someone. But there's a difference between being kind and pleasing people. And if you keep doing it to seek their approval, there comes a time, how much ever you do, it becomes less.
Yeah.
And you get burnt out and you get exhausted.
Yeah, I think intention is really important, right? I mean, so I've been obviously, we've been working together, and I have observed like the way you give to people. You are a natural, like, for me, I'm not the kind of, like, even if I love somebody, it doesn't occur to me that, oh, you know what, I'm going to give them this gift, or maybe they like this, because that's just not the way that I operate. I don't even think about it from my own perspective. But when I look at you, and you're always very thoughtful about, other people, what they want, and you will give it to them, but you will give it to them from a perspective of this is what you want, not so that they could like you, but so that they could feel better about, they could just feel better. They could just feel good, and I think that switch in the intention, I think, is all the difference. How you feel.
Yeah, because earlier also I would do it, but not knowing that I'm doing it from a space of, oh, they should not judge me or they should like me. But now I do it from a space of, I love this person and I'll do whatever it takes for this person. And I just love doing it because I realize I'm a giver. So I did not change the trait of giving, but the space from where it came shifted. Right. So I don't burn myself out in the process. And at the same time, I don't feel guilty if I miss it out. There's at times you do miss out. You're a human being, right? And at times you do. Absolutely. So I don't feel guilty about that. And I also now know of the importance of putting yourself, I would not say first, but also being kind to yourself at the same time. I give myself as much as, I give.
I heard this quote by Jim Rohn. I was listening to one of his seminars, and he says that his father used to say to him that, listen, Jim, after me, you come first. So after me, you come first, which is actually really true. Like, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others, But tell me, where has all of this like led you? Like, now that, there have been shifts in how you behave and, the space that you come from. How does that make a difference in life, like in your relationships and your finances and your business? What has that enabled you to accomplish?
So there came a point in time when I was depressed, and then I hit suicide, and something happened and I rethought of my decision, and that's the time I got into therapies. And when I started coming out of that space of my life and I started becoming who I really am, we are like layers of onion. So you kind of peel that one layer and then the layer and then the layer, and you start discovering the core of you. I started discovering more of me, and it started making me realize that, oh my God, like if I went through all this, which I did not know I was going through, I did not know. I was just going through it in a very autopilot mode and just taking that whole bag off. Like, I remember my sister telling that, why do you look so frustrated every time I see you? Because I did not even know what's really happening to me. But I went through it. And when I came out of it, when I looked back, I said, oh my God, like so many other people could be going through something like this. Right? And that's where the journey started. I said, I want to do this for others. And I started studying in this field. And so it was not like one day you get up and, everything around you kind of
Changes.
changed. And
Yes.
there is no...
That's dreamland.
There is no fairy story happening here, and there is no Cinderella, and there's no frog which kisses you. So there's nothing like that happens. So you have to find your own king. You have to find your own Prince Charming. You have to go find your own, dreamland or whatever it is. So it became a journey, and it became a quest, and it kept moving me forward and forward and forward to saying that, this is where I want to go, this is where I want to go. So obviously financially I was in a bad space, and I've told you this before, we were so broke that I've had great people in my life, but today when I look back and see, I think it's who you are, you attract that kind of people in your life.
I agree.
Right? Because at times I had some such good friends who still are my friends, who would pay my house rent. And I would just tell them, can you just transfer this much into my account? And they would just transfer it. And we were, actually managing house rent like that. So many, many, many months which happened. And though they were concerned for me, and they would be like, Smita, this is your second marriage. Where do you think this is going? But they still kept doing it. And I have people who now tell me, I don't even think I have that good friends in life. Then sorry to say, but you have to really take a little look into your own self if you've not had that people in your life, because I agree, earning money, getting your dreams, whatever in life is something that you have to work towards. And it's not that, not everyone is born being rich. So you have to work and create it. But at least you can work on being the human being that you're becoming, right? You can at least become that person that you're wanting to become.
Right.
And if you're that person, you will automatically attract good people in your life. They'll just come and they'll stay.
Yeah.
Right. So I had those good people. So obviously I was in that space of life. And from there, I didn't stop because the quest was really deep. Mm-hmm. And I was not willing to give up. And I had made this very, I think when I lived the second time, I think people, when they're living every single day of their life, take their life too much for granted. I know what it is to reach suicide and come out of it. Right. And I didn't commit it though, but I had completely planned it. So I know what it is to value life. I know what it is to live every single day of your life. I know what it is to wake up in the morning and put your feet down on the floor. So I didn't give up. I didn't let challenges define me. I decided and I let my responses to that particular situation define me.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that's something that you can control.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything more to say. I think after that, what I wanted to also touch upon is, I don't have your book in my hand right now.
Yeah.
But I want you to maybe give people a little bit of an idea, because what I do want to do is, once your book does come out, I want to read it. And then maybe we could have an interesting conversation about that. That would be pretty fun. But what is it about? Like, if people, what if you were to describe your book in like one sentence, what is it about?
So it's called as The Whole Pie, right? And that again comes from my life's journey of when I decided to relive. I had a reason to relive. I just didn't get up and said that I'm going to relive, right? I looked at my daughter and I said that, I want to be a role model to her. What's the kind of life I want her to introduce to? And I remember all throughout my growing up years, I have heard things like, you can't always have, a good relationship, money, success. So I've heard, okay, if a woman goes after her ambition, she doesn't have good relationship, or rich people are not healthy, or, rich people are not good, or, if you want a good, happy married life, you need to compromise on something. So I've heard all of these things. And when I looked at my daughter that night and I said, okay, I want to live, and I want to live for her and be a role model for her. Based on, I want her to know that life will have challenges and my mother is a winner, and so can I be. So I said, what's the world I want her to introduce to? Do I want her to introduce to this world where it's either or? You can either have money or have, relationship or have health. And I said, no, I don't want her to get introduced to this kind of a world. I want her to be introduced to a world where she can have health, wealth, money, happiness, relationship, you name it, and you have it all. Right? So that's where the quest started. And that's what the whole pie is about. There are 11 chapters. It talks about every single area of your life. So it speaks relationship. It speaks about money. It speaks about your body. It speaks about how you can use your body to achieve what you want to achieve. It speaks about patterns of your mental subconscious patterns. So it basically speaks about 11 steps. If you walk through, how you can actually have the whole pie in your life. And every single step, which means every single chapter, is a real life story of my clients who have actually gone through sessions with me. We have changed their name and identity. And but it's real stories of sessions that I've done and how they have achieved what they've achieved in life with the work that we did. So that's what it is.
That's fantastic. And now I'm even more excited. I feel like I wanna. You gotta give me a copy early. I'm sorry.
Of course,
you gotta give me a copy
absolutely.
early. This is not gonna fly. So, damn. When is it coming out? Do you want to tell people?
So, the launch date we're planning is April 7th right now, and the cover is already out. And so we're just working on the last few phases of the publishing. So right now the date planned is April 7th.
So chances are by the time this podcast comes out that the book is already out. If it is, I'm going to put a link in the description for everyone below so you guys can go check it out. Man, it sounds super exciting. Smita, thank you so much for coming on today, having this conversation. We talk a lot, but every time we have one of these conversations with you, it changes a little bit of, I think my own mental patterns and gives me a perspective, a different perspective that helps me see things a lot clearer. So thank you so much, man.
Thank you. That's why I tell you should hang out more with me.
Done. And other reasons which we will discuss. All right. Thanks so much, Smita. Take care.
Thank you, Jay. Bye-bye.